What's going on, everyone? So yesterday we got a bunch of headlines of Austin Reaves is Team USA's best player at the World Cup so far. We got this Lakers news. Experts rank Austin Reaves as best overall Team USA player. And for those that are wondering, oh, this is probably like one of those like nonsense articles or whatever. No, this directly headline was from Sports Illustrated, and they talked to some experts and they said that Austin Reaves was the best player, or was overall the best player. Now, in reality, he's on the roster. He's not the best player, right? Anthony Edwards was far and away the best player. But like I've talked about on numerous occasions, you can really and truly make the argument that Austin Reaves was the second best player on Team USA. And you can also make the argument, which that's what the article's title is, that Austin Reaves was their best overall player. He was the most efficient. He had the best rating for Team USA. He was number one in like every metric. The guy was incredible for Team USA. And that is kind of what, or how I perceive those articles. Now, I know some people are going to lose their minds and stuff. And again, I understand that some of this is just straight hype, right? And it's just this like whirlwind of like, he's a Laker on Team USA, so he's getting this like insane hype. And to an extent, I absolutely agree with you. But he's also living up to said hype. If he was some bum, right, he would not be getting and continuously getting this level of hype. He would have gotten the hype to start, absolutely, but that would have easily cooled off had he been just a guy, right? He was the 6th, 7th best player on this roster. People were screaming that he shouldn't even have been on this roster. You know, that he was the only reason he made the rosters because he's a Laker and blah, blah, blah. And he was literally their best statistical player, their best rated player, everything. Like, Austin Reaves was incredible. And the thing that makes him so great, he's extremely competitive, but extremely humble. He's so well-rounded, does everything well. He's that gap player, right? He's a guy that can play on the ball, can play off the ball. He's willing to let other people shine. He doesn't really care so much about his as he does care about winning. If you need him to go get 21, he'll go get 21, right? If you need him to go get and be your number one scorer and lead your team in assists, he'll do that, right? Whatever you need, he's there to do. The guy averaged like just under like 13 points per game for Team USA, gave you like just under 3 and 3. And for those that are like, oh, that's nothing, like that is ridiculous for FIBA basketball on Team USA, especially when you're like the 7th guy on the roster. And look, everyone, like a lot of guys had standout games, right? Obviously, Anthony Edwards was far and away their best player, but you know, Jalen Brunson had a night. You had Mikal Bridges have a night, right? Like, you saw several guys have some solid nights. But Austin Reaves was like, here, like, again, go look at his stats. It's like, here's 11, 12, 15, 21, 13. He had that one bad game, but still gave you 7 points on like, 3 of 5 shooting or whatever it was. Right? It's just like, his bad games were as good as like even Brandon Ingram, right? Like his bad game was what Brandon Ingram averaged in this entire FIBA. And it sucks that Austin Reaves didn't win a gold medal. I think that would have been awesome, but he learned a lot. He got a ton of experience. This is huge for him going into this upcoming season. And, it showed too something that's really going to build his confidence, because it showed, I'm not just here because I'm a Laker. I'm here because I'm good enough to compete and play with these guys. I'm good enough to be one of the best players on Team USA. He's not the best player, but you cannot argue in any way. The eye test, stats, metrics, anything. There is no argument that he wasn't one of the top 3 or 4 best players on that team. You had Anthony Edwards, like I said, who was the best player. And then you had Tyrese Halliburton, who was really good. Tyrese Halliburton was also number 3 in rating. Paolo Banchero was number 2, right? But you had Halliburton, you had Bridges, you had Reaves, and you had Anthony Edwards, who were the real standouts. Again, Brunson had those games here and there, but he also had a lot of just like really bad games. Austin Reaves was very like game in and game out. Here's what I am. Here's what you get. No problems. And that is what is going to be so huge and impactful for him and this season for the Lakers. Because there was these questions, right? Like, to an extent, I understood why people felt Austin Reaves didn't deserve that roster spot. Because it was like, we've seen countless players have great stretches, great playoffs, great years, right? Like, Rui Hachimura had a great, incredible playoffs. He's actually, every time he's been in the playoffs, has been like ridiculous. He shoots like 55% from the field in the playoffs. And granted, he hasn't been in like, he's not like a perennial playoff guy, but he's been in a couple, and with the Wizards and then the Lakers, and he's been the same guy, but he hasn't been able to like really translate that into the regular season. And so there is this question of like, was this just a circumstance, right? He wasn't really doing this before, kind of came out of left field. It took LeBron getting injured. Circumstances happened. He kind of was the only guy really and stepped up, and that kind of carried over. And he was this third guy, but can he maintain that? And then he did it in the playoffs. And he even had like that 2 or 3 game stretch, whatever, in like that Warriors series where like people were like, he came back to earth, and he immediately corrected that. And then he was like the Lakers' best player in that Nuggets series. He was their most consistent player. He gave you like 21, 5 and 5 or whatever it was, or 17, 5 and 5 or something like that in the Nuggets series. And on top of that, he was like 55, 60, and like 92 or whatever in that series. Like, the dude proved it. But okay, is he going to be able to carry that over? Will that carry over and translate into this upcoming season? And then he goes on Team USA and does the exact same thing he did as the 7th guy on Team USA. He was so good, Steve Kerr couldn't keep him off the court. Every time he went off the court, Team USA struggled. And every time Team USA was struggling, they would put in Austin Reaves and everything would go back to normal. And I mean, you could even make an argument that the last game that eliminated Team USA, if they went to Reaves more, like to start that fourth quarter, they might have not lost that game. He was that good and that impactful. And it's like we have enough of a sample size now to realize that Reaves is Reaves. Like, this is who he is. Now, I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5, top 10 guy in the league, but it doesn't have to be. Not everyone has to be that, right? Like, it's fine for him to be an all-star level guy. Even if he never makes an all-star, every year there are those all-star snubs. There's like those handful of guys that give you all-star level numbers, but there's just so much talent at that depth or at that position that it just falls out. Right? Like, Austin Reaves could easily, I think he's very likely going to be somewhere in the 15 to 20 point a game range. I was actually more like 18 to 20 points, but I think with the acquisition of Christian Wood, I think he gets less shots, less opportunity. Where I think before it would have been just kind of like him. I think he would have been on most nights like the second option. I still think he will be, but I think he's going to, like, you just have now so many mouths that need to be fed, right? That I think Austin Reaves, instead of getting you like 20 to 22 a game, I think he gives you like 15 a game. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if he's 25 and 5 this year. The guy almost was 50, 40, 90. Do you know how many players in the history of the league have been 50, 40, 90? And almost all of them are Hall of Famer guys, right? Like, it's just, he's doing incredible feats, and it just came out of left field. But he keeps doing it. And look, again, he's going to have to go this season and continue to prove that, right? We're going to need to see him string it together for a full year. And I completely get that. I completely understand that. Again, two things can be correct. You can have a guy that's just ridiculously hyped, to a point of like, it's crazy, but he also can live up to said hype. And he's doing that. Again, he's doing that. Like, I don't think, like, there's the questions. Is he a superstar? Is he an all-star? Is he a star? Like again, there's levels to this. And look, I've talked about this repeatedly. I think that superstar and star and stuff like that, I think they get thrown around way too lightly. Like, superstar to me are like global impacting guys, like the top 5 guys in the league. And then you have a couple like, like the Kyries, the Jaws, like stuff like that, right? But usually superstar is the Kevin Durant's, the LeBron James, the Kobe Bryant's, those kind of guys of the world, right? The guys that are global, Steph Curry's. And then you have the stars, right? Like, you got like Devin Booker, right? You got Kyrie, I think, he's probably closer to a superstar just because of the global brand and stuff like that. But you get my point. Like Trae Young, right? Like, you got these guys that are like super notable, like they're franchise guys. People know them. They got shoes. They got all kinds of stuff, right? Like, things like that. I don't think Austin Reaves is anywhere in that category. From like a recognizable standpoint now, you maybe can make that argument, right? He's like, everywhere he went on this like FIBA tour, he was getting love from everywhere and people were chanting his name and stuff like that, especially like the Philippines and stuff like that. So from like a notoriety standpoint, I guess, like, you can make that argument. But from like talent level, I don't think he's there yet. And I personally, I wouldn't even put him at star yet. Now, if he does do what I believe he will do this season, then I absolutely think he is. Absolutely. And then I think he may even be all-star, right? Because again, they're stars, all-stars, superstars, right? I think he is right now on that line of star. I just personally, for me, want to see him put it together for an entire season, which I have zero doubt he'll be able to do. But there are, again, those question marks, and I want to be fair and actually allow things to unfold before I personally just label somebody that. Because we have seen like Chandler Parsons, Jeremy Lin had a stretch like this, and the dude is still out the league, right? Like, it's just, we've seen stuff like this. Can he put it together now that defenses are going to be targeting him, and he's going to have a target on his back, and teams are going to be running entire schemes to try to slow him down, right? Paul George talked about this in a podcast. The game completely changes. Talked about it his first year that he actually became, a 20-plus point a game guy, and he said it was absolute cake, and he was like, oh, this is easy. And then he said that next year, teams were like, okay, we need to slow him down, and the game changed, and he struggled, and it was tough, and he had to like kind of figure it out, and he was able to figure it out. I wouldn't even be surprised if Austin Reaves has a stretch where he's got to kind of figure it out, right? And some of the rule changes and stuff, like, I fully believe that at some point this season, I will be like, Austin Reaves is undoubtedly a star. It could be after game 1. If he goes and drops 30 and just dominates and is just like, he's right back and Denver's trying to slow him down and stop him and they just can't, then yeah. But again, I want to see. He was a star for USA. If you want to say, if you want to say he's a star, I won't really push back on you. If you want to say he's a superstar, I think we use that too loosely. But if you were like, hey, Austin, I believe Austin Reaves is a star, I would fully back you. I'd be like, hey, I completely get it. Again, me personally, I want to see him kind of string this together again for this season. And does he continue to stand out amongst the LeBrons, the ADs, the Woods, stuff like that? Because I do think he's going to have a huge role this year. But anyway, again, as always, this is a discussion. Pass the question on to you. Gave my opinions. I want to hear yours. Let me know how you feel down in the comments.